Hash the choice. Why Marines refuse Japanese weapons. Henderson Field, Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands. October 23, 1942. The jungle air hangs heavy with the stench of cordite and rotting vegetation. Corporal James Mitchell of the 1st Marine Division, 1st Regiment, kneels beside a fallen Japanese soldier near the airfield perimeter. His hands tremble slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion after 72 hours of continuous combat. The battle for Henderson Field rages on. Beside the body lies something unexpected. A Type 100 submachine gun, its chrome-plated barrel gleaming in the filtered sunlight. The weapon looks pristine, well-crafted with distinctive markings and a side-mounted magazine. Mitchell examines the craftsmanship. He notes the adjustable sights, the bipod attachment points, the bayonet lug. His M1 Garand weighs 11.2 pounds with bayonet and sling, heavy after months of carrying it through jungle hell. For a moment, he considers the trade. Then Mitchell makes a choice that will be repeated thousands of times across the Pacific. He sets the Japanese weapon aside and keeps his Garand. That simple decision, multiplied across hundreds of combat situations on dozens of islands, reveals profound truths about warfare, industrial philosophy, and technological advantage. The Japanese designed what they believed was an advanced automatic weapon. It's lighter, fires automatically, carries more ammunition. Yet Marines consistently refuse to trade their semi-automatic rifles for these captured submachine guns. What those Marines understand instinctively will take military historians decades to fully analyze. True combat effectiveness comes not from rate of fire or perceived modernity, but from entirely different principles. The mathematics of this preference tells a story about two fundamentally different approaches to warfare. One prioritizes theoretical advancement over practical reliability. The other chooses proven effectiveness over innovation. In jungle combat, where weapon failure means death, that choice proves decisive. The story begins not with confrontation, but with parallel development across two oceans and two radically different military philosophies. January 1936. After years of testing and debate, the United States Army officially adopts the M1 Garand as its standard service rifle. This adoption represents a revolutionary moment in military history. For the first time, a major military power will equip its entire frontline infantry with semi-automatic rifles rather than bolt-action weapons. The path to this adoption has been neither smooth nor certain. Canadian-born engineer John Cantius Garand joined Springfield Armory in Massachusetts in 1919, bringing with him ideas about gas-operated rifle actions that will transform infantry warfare. Garand is a meticulous designer, a perfectionist who understands both mechanical engineering and the practical requirements of military service. His early designs fail testing. Ammunition changes force complete redesigns. Army brass questions whether soldiers need semi-automatic fire. Budget constraints threaten the entire program, but Garand persists, refining his design through the 1920s and early 1930s. His rifle uses a gas-operated rotating bolt action. When fired, expanding gases are tapped from the barrel through a port, driving a piston that operates the bolt. The bolt rotates to unlock, extracts the spent cartridge, ejects it, and loads a fresh round from an 8-round en-bloc clip. The entire cycle occurs in fractions of a second, allowing a skilled rifleman to fire as fast as he can pull the trigger while maintaining sight picture and aim. The M1 Garand fires the powerful .3006 Springfield cartridge, the same ammunition used in the bolt-action M1903 Springfield rifle. This .30 caliber round has been standardized in 1906, hence the designation .06. It fires a 150-grain bullet at approximately 2,850 feet per second, generating approximately 2,650 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. This gives the round tremendous range, penetration, and stopping power. The decision to maintain this caliber ensures ammunition compatibility across the entire arsenal and preserves the lethality that American military planners demand. The rifle itself weighs 9.5 pounds unloaded, 11.2 pounds with a loaded clip, bayonet, and sling. It measures 43.6 inches in total length with a 24-inch barrel. The walnut stock and steel construction make it robust and durable. The adjustable rear aperture sight allows precise shooting at varying ranges. The weapon can effectively engage targets beyond 500 yards in trained hands, though most combat occurs at much closer ranges. General George Smith Patton will famously call it the greatest battle implement ever devised. This praise comes in a letter to Major General Levin Campbell, Chief of Ordnance, on January 26, 1945. But in 1942, as the 1st Marine Division lands on Guadalcanal in August, this praise remains theoretical. Many Marines still carry M1903 Springfield bolt-action rifles. The M1 Garand remains in relatively short supply. Production has ramped up slowly. The Marine Corps deliberately chose a phased implementation policy, equipping rear echelon units first while they evaluate the rifle's performance in harsh amphibious conditions. Yet those Marines who have received Garands quickly develop fierce loyalty to the weapon. They discover that when they pull the trigger, it fires. When they aim at an enemy, if they do their part, the weapon will do its part. When they hit an enemy with the .3006 round, he goes down and stays down. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, Japan follows a completely different path in weapons development. Throughout the 1930s, Japanese military doctrine emphasizes three elements: rifle marksmanship at long range, bayonet charges at close range, machine gun support for both. The concept of a submachine gun, a weapon firing pistol-caliber ammunition at high rates of fire, finds little favor with Japanese military planners steeped in traditions dating back centuries. The Japanese Army purchased small quantities of European submachine guns in the 1920s and early 1930s. Approximately 445 to 500 Sig Bergmann 1920 submachine guns, a Swiss-made weapon based on the German MP-18 design, entered Japanese service. These fire 7.63x25 Mauser cartridges. A small number of Austrian-made Steyr-Solothurn S-100 submachine guns also see limited use. These weapons are examined, tested, and largely dismissed as niche tools unsuited to Japanese tactical doctrine. This begins to change dramatically in 1937, when Japanese forces encounter Chinese troops using submachine guns effectively during the Second Sino-Japanese War. The Battle of Shanghai, which rages from August 13 through November 26, 1937, proves particularly instructive. In the dense urban environment, Chinese soldiers armed with various submachine guns can lay down devastating close-range fire during street fighting. Japanese infantry, armed primarily with bolt-action type .38 rifles, find themselves outgunned in building-to-building combat. The shock of Shanghai forces Japanese military planners to reconsider. In August 1937, immediately after experiencing the effectiveness of Chinese submachine guns in urban combat, the Imperial Japanese Army initiates development of their own submachine gun. Lieutenant General Kajiro Nambu, designer of the famous Nambu pistol, receives orders to create a Japanese submachine gun based on the imported Bergmann designs they studied. Development proceeds through several experimental models. The experimental Model 3 appears in 1938, followed by Model 3B and 3C variants in 1939. Finally, in 1940, the Imperial Japanese Army formally adopts the weapon as the Type 100 submachine gun, the designation referring to the Japanese Imperial Year 2600. The Type 100 fires the 8 Nambu cartridge, officially designated 8x22 Nambu. This pistol round fires a 102-grain bullet at approximately 1,030 feet per second, generating only 242 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. This represents less than one-tenth the power of the .3006 fired by the M1 Garand. The weak cartridge limits effective range to approximately 150 meters under ideal conditions, though practical combat range proves much shorter. The weapon itself features a simple blowback-operated mechanism firing from an open bolt. The cyclic rate of fire varies by model. The early Type 140 fires at approximately 450 rounds per minute. The later simplified Type 144 increases this to 800 rounds per minute. The weapon feeds from a curved 30-round magazine inserted horizontally on the left side, an unusual configuration that makes the weapon awkward to handle in confined spaces. Production of the Type 100 occurs at Kokura Arsenal and Nagoya Arsenal, with the weapon designed by Nambu Arms Manufacturing Company. Total production numbers remain disputed due to incomplete wartime records. Japanese military historian Shigasugawa documents approximately 10,000 units produced, with nearly 9,000 being the later simplified model. However, some Western sources estimate up to 30,000 units may have been manufactured, though the lower figure appears more credible based on Japanese records. The Type 100 suffers from numerous design flaws that become apparent under combat conditions. The complex bayonet lug and bipod mounting system add unnecessary weight and manufacturing complexity. The horizontal magazine makes the weapon difficult to fire from cover. The safety mechanism proves unreliable. The rear sight, optimistically graduated to 1,500 meters on early models, bears no relationship to the weapon's actual capabilities. Perhaps most critically, the weak 8 Nambu cartridge lacks stopping power and penetration. Manufacturing quality declines precipitously as the war progresses. Early production models show reasonable fit and finish. By 1944 and 1945, with Japanese industry collapsing under bombing and blockade, Type 100 specimens exhibit rough machining, poor welding, and inferior materials. Chrome lining disappears from barrels. Wooden stocks give way to crude fabrications. Tolerances loosen to the point where reliability, already marginal, becomes entirely unpredictable. Distribution compounds these problems. The Imperial Japanese Army never fully embraces the submachine gun conceptually or logistically. Production remains low priority. Most Type 100s go to specialized units. Paratroopers receive a collapsible stock variant. Naval Special Landing Forces, Japan's Marines, receive limited quantities. Tank crews occasionally carry them. Regular infantry rarely see them. By the time Marines encountered Japanese forces on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, and other island battles, the Type 100 remains a rare curiosity rather than a standard weapon. When Marines do encounter Type 100s, either captured or taken from dead Japanese soldiers, they invariably reject them after brief examination. The reasons are immediately apparent to combat veterans. At typical Pacific Island engagement ranges of 100 to 300 yards, the Type 100 cannot reach targets that the M1 Garand can destroy with aimed fire. The 8 Nambu round fails to penetrate even light cover that the .3006 punches through effortlessly. Dense jungle vegetation that barely slows the powerful Garand round deflects the weak pistol cartridge. In close quarters combat, where the Type 100 should theoretically excel, practical realities intervene. The horizontal magazine snags on doorways, vegetation, and equipment. The crude sights make accurate shooting nearly impossible. The unreliable safety leads to accidental discharges or failures to fire when needed. Most critically, Marines have no reliable source of 8 Nambu ammunition. Using a captured weapon means depending on captured ammunition, a risk no Marine will willingly take when his life depends on his weapon functioning. The M1 Garand, by contrast, offers Marines everything they need for survival in Pacific combat. The semi-automatic action allows rapid aimed fire without losing sight picture. A trained Marine can deliver 8 rounds accurately in less than 10 seconds, then reload with a fresh en-bloc clip in under 3 seconds. The powerful .3006 cartridge can penetrate Japanese bunkers, destroy light fortifications, and stop enemy soldiers instantly at any practical combat range. Reliability proves paramount in the harsh Pacific environment. The Garand functions in mud, sand, salt water, and jungle humidity that would destroy more delicate weapons. The gas system, while requiring maintenance, proves remarkably tolerant of fouling. The operating rod and bolt can be cleared and lubricated in seconds. Parts are completely interchangeable between rifles. Every Marine knows that his Garand will fire when he pulls the trigger, regardless of conditions. The ammunition supply system reinforces this reliability. The .3006 cartridge is manufactured by the millions in dozens of American factories. Every round meets strict specifications. Every clip functions identically. Supply lines, despite the vast Pacific distances, ensure continuous ammunition availability. Marines never worry about running out of .3006 ammunition. They never question whether a round will fire or function properly. Training creates the final advantage. Every Marine learns to shoot, clean, maintain, and repair the M1 Garand during basic training. They understand the weapon intimately. They can disassemble and reassemble it blindfolded. They know its capabilities and limitations. They trust it because they understand it. The Type 100 remains an unknown, a foreign weapon with unfamiliar characteristics and uncertain performance. The contrast extends beyond the weapons themselves to the vastly different industrial systems that produce them. American industry churns out M1 Garands by the millions. Springfield Armory in Massachusetts and Winchester Repeating Arms Company produced the rifle under government contract throughout World War II. Production quality remains consistently high throughout the war. Every Garand is completely interchangeable with every other Garand. Every part is standardized. Every weapon is reliable. American mass production represents the pinnacle of industrial capability. Japanese industry, increasingly strained by war, blockaded by submarines, bombed by aircraft, and desperately short of raw materials, produces Type 100 submachine guns in small batches with declining quality. Early production versions show reasonable finish and acceptable quality. Late-war versions reveal rough machining, poor welding, inferior materials, and declining standards. Corners cut in production to increase output make already unreliable weapons even less dependable. The weapons reflect the collapse of Japanese industrial capacity. This reflects essential differences in industrial philosophy and national capacity. American mass production prioritizes standardization, interchangeability, and rigorous quality control at massive scale. Every part meets specifications. Every weapon undergoes testing. Defects are identified and corrected. The system emphasizes consistent, reliable output. Japanese production, more artisanal and craft-based in tradition, struggles desperately to maintain any quality standards under crushing wartime pressures. Resources vanish. Skilled workers are conscripted into combat units. Factories are bombed. Supply chains collapse. The weapons reflect these catastrophic pressures. Marines understand these differences instinctively through direct experience. When they pull the trigger on their Garand, it fires. When they aim at an enemy, the weapon performs. When they hit an enemy, he goes down. When they need to engage targets at 300 yards, the Garand delivers. When their weapon gets dirty, wet, muddy, or damaged, it still functions. These certainties keep Marines alive. The Type 100 offers none of these assurances. It represents an unknown, a gamble, a risk. In combat, Marines never gamble with their lives. The legacy of this choice extends far beyond World War II into subsequent decades of military development. The M1 Garand continues in American military service through the entire Korean War from 1950 to 1953, where it again proves superior to submachine guns in most combat situations. The weapon directly influences development of the M14 rifle, which is essentially an M1 Garand modified to use a 20-round detachable box magazine and capable of selective fire between semi-automatic and full automatic. The core design principles of the Garand, prioritizing reliability, power, and effectiveness over all other considerations, influence American military small arms development for decades afterward. The Type 100 disappears into historical obscurity. After the war ends in August 1945, American occupation authorities issue remaining stocks to Japanese police forces, where the weapon's limitations matter far less than in military combat. Few examples survive today in museums and private collections. Most were destroyed, lost in the chaos of defeat, or simply forgotten. The weapon remains a footnote in military firearms history, a cautionary example of a design that looked advanced on paper but failed in practice. Modern military historians and firearms experts examining both weapons objectively, with decades of perspective, consistently conclude that Marines made the correct choice. The M1 Garand represents the pinnacle of semi-automatic rifle development in its era. It combines tremendous power, exceptional reliability, and consistent effectiveness in a package that serves American infantry superbly throughout the war. The Japanese Type 100 submachine gun, while representing a reasonable engineering effort given Japanese resources and tactical doctrine, simply cannot compete effectively with the Garand in realistic combat situations. Marines who consistently reject captured Type 100 weapons in favor of their M1 Garands make tactically sound decisions based on practical combat realities rather than theoretical specifications. The cold numbers support these conclusions unambiguously. The M1 Garand plays crucial roles in every major Marine Corps operation throughout the entire Pacific Theater. Guadalcanal from August 1942 through February 9, 1943. Tarawa on November 20th through 23rd, 1943. Saipan from June 15th through July 9th, 1944. Peleliu from September 15th through November 27th, 1944. Iwo Jima from February 19th through March 26th, 1945. Okinawa from April 1st through June 22nd, 1945. The weapon contributes decisively to victory in every single campaign. Marines armed with Garands achieve consistent tactical success against determined, well-trained, fanatically motivated enemies in the most difficult terrain and environmental conditions imaginable. The Type 100, despite being produced in thousands, makes essentially no meaningful impact on the war's outcome. Its limited distribution, design flaws, and persistent logistical problems ensure it remains a curiosity rather than an effective combat weapon. Japanese forces would have been better served by producing additional rifles or machine guns than by investing increasingly scarce resources in a flawed submachine gun design that addresses no real tactical need. Combat experience validates these technical differences in blood. During the October 23rd through 26th Battle for Henderson Field, Marines of the 7th Marine Regiment face massive Japanese attacks attempting to retake the airfield. In the desperate fighting, Marines with M1 Garands can engage Japanese troops at ranges where enemy rifle fire remains ineffective. The rapid semi-automatic fire of the Garand allows individual Marines to break up Japanese assault formations before they can close to effective range. Private First Class Mitchell Page, manning a machine gun position during this battle, will later receive the Medal of Honor for his actions. When Japanese forces overrun adjacent positions, Page and the riflemen around him hold their ground. The M1 Garands of the supporting riflemen provide the volume of accurate fire needed to prevent the Japanese from exploiting their breakthrough. Page himself will later credit the firepower of the Garand-armed Marines with helping save his position. Sergeant John Basilone, another Medal of Honor recipient from the same battle, witnesses the effectiveness of the M1 Garand firsthand, though primarily a machine gunner himself. Basilone observes how Marines with semi-automatic rifles can maintain continuous suppressive fire while others maneuver. This tactical flexibility, impossible with bolt-action rifles, transforms small unit tactics throughout the Pacific Campaign. The evolution of Marine Corps tactics reflects growing confidence in the M1 Garand. Initial skepticism about the rifle's reliability in amphibious operations disappears after the weapon proves itself in combat. By the time of Operation Galvanic at Tarawa in November 1943, Marines have developed new assault techniques that maximize the Garand's capabilities. Fire teams can maintain continuous suppressive fire with one Marine firing while another reloads. The 8-round capacity and rapid reload capability mean that Marines can advance under their own covering fire. The Battle of Saipan in June and July 1944 demonstrates the M1 Garand's effectiveness in varied terrain. From the beaches to the mountainous interior, Marines engage Japanese forces at distances ranging from point-blank to over 400 yards. The versatility of the M1 Garand allows Marines to adapt their tactics to each situation. In the cane fields, Marines can engage Japanese snipers at extreme ranges. In the caves and ravines of Mount Tapachau, the stopping power of the .3006 proves essential for defeating Japanese positions protected by natural fortifications. Captain Louis H. Wilson, who will later become Commandant of the Marine Corps, earns the Medal of Honor on Guam in July 1944. Leading his company in an assault on Font Hill, Wilson personally demonstrates the M1 Garand's capabilities by eliminating multiple Japanese positions with accurate rifle fire. His citation specifically notes his effective use of rifle fire in leading the assault. This represents countless similar actions where individual Marines armed with M1 Garands can decisively influence tactical situations through superior firepower. The Japanese military's own assessment of American small arms, documented in captured reports, acknowledges the overwhelming superiority of the M1 Garand. A translated Japanese training document from 1944 warns that American semi-automatic rifles can deliver devastating firepower and advises that Japanese forces should avoid rifle duels at extended ranges. The document recommends night attacks and close combat as the only viable tactics against American rifle-equipped units, a tacit admission of the Type 100's inadequacy. Production statistics from 1944 illustrate the widening gap between American and Japanese industrial capacity. Springfield Armory alone produces more M1 Garands in a single month than Japan produces Type 100s during the entire year. Winchester's monthly production exceeds Japan's total wartime submachine gun production. These numbers translate directly into battlefield superiority. Every Marine infantry battalion possesses more firepower than an entire Japanese regiment, primarily due to the superiority and availability of the M1 Garand. The Battle of Peleliu from September through November 1944 showcases the M1 Garand's superiority in the most challenging combat conditions. The 1st Marine Division encounters Japanese forces employing new defensive tactics, fighting from elaborate cave systems rather than launching suicidal charges. In this grinding battle of attrition, the M1 Garand's accuracy and penetration prove essential. Marines can place accurate fire into cave openings at extended ranges, while the .3006's penetration can defeat improvised armor and fortifications. Private First Class Richard Krause, posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor at Peleliu, exemplifies the individual firepower that the M1 Garand provides to every Marine. When his squad is pinned down by Japanese fire, Krause advances alone against enemy positions, using his Garand to eliminate multiple enemy strongpoints before being mortally wounded. his ability to deliver rapid, accurate fire, while maneuvering would have been impossible with a bolt-action rifle and suicidal with a short-ranged submachine gun. The Philippines campaign of 1944 and 1945 sees limited deployment of Type 100s among Japanese forces, primarily with naval troops defending Manila. In urban combat, where the submachine gun should theoretically excel, the weapons prove ineffective against American forces. Marines and soldiers armed with M1 Garands can engage Japanese positions through walls and fortifications that stop pistol-caliber rounds. The weak 8 Nambu cartridge fails to penetrate even basic urban cover like wooden doors or furniture that Americans use for protection. Comparative testing conducted by American ordnance experts provides scientific validation of combat experience. At Aberdeen Proving Ground, captured Type 100s are subjected to rigorous testing alongside M1 Garands. The results prove devastating for the Japanese weapon. Accuracy testing at 100 yards shows the M1 Garand grouping shots within 4 inches, while the Type 100 can barely keep rounds on a standard silhouette target. Penetration tests demonstrate that the .3006 can penetrate over 30 inches of pine boards, while the 8 Nambu penetrates less than 8 inches. Reliability testing proves even more damning. The M1 Garand continues functioning after exposure to mud, sand, and water that completely disables the Type 100. Endurance testing shows the Garand capable of firing thousands of rounds with minimal maintenance, while Type 100s experience increasing malfunctions after just a few hundred rounds. Cold weather testing, relevant for potential operations in northern Japan or Korea, shows the Garand functioning normally at -20 degrees Fahrenheit, while the Type 100's open bolt mechanism freezes solid. The institutional response to these tests is unanimous. American ordnance officers conclude that the Type 100 represents no improvement over World War I-era submachine guns and is inferior to contemporary Allied designs like the British Sten or Soviet PPSH-41. More importantly, they confirm that for Pacific combat conditions, the M1 Garand remains vastly superior to any submachine gun regardless of origin. Veterans' accounts from the Battle of Iwo Jima in February and March 1945 consistently emphasize the M1 Garand's role in survival and victory. The volcanic ash of Iwo Jima creates unique challenges for weapons maintenance. Yet the Garand continues functioning when more delicate weapons fail. Marines can clear their rifles quickly and return to action. The 27 Medals of Honor awarded for actions at Iwo Jima often cite effective rifle fire in their narratives, testament to the M1 Garand's importance in individual combat actions. Gunnery Sergeant John Basilone, who earned the Medal of Honor on Guadalcanal, is killed in action on Iwo Jima while leading an assault on Japanese positions. Witnesses report that Basilone, armed with an M1 Garand after his machine gun was destroyed, continues to deliver effective fire while maneuvering his unit forward. His death demonstrates that even the finest weapons cannot guarantee survival, but also that the M1 Garand gives Marines the best possible chance in combat. The final major Pacific battle at Okinawa from April through June 1945 sees the M1 Garand at its peak effectiveness. The 10th Army, comprising both Marine and Army divisions, brings overwhelming firepower to bear on Japanese positions. Individual riflemen with M1 Garands can engage Japanese forces at ranges exceeding 400 yards in the open terrain of southern Okinawa. In the close combat of the Shuri Line, the stopping power of the .3006 proves essential for defeating determined Japanese defenders. The Japanese 32nd Army defending Okinawa includes units equipped with the full range of Japanese small arms, including Type 100s. Yet these weapons make no discernible impact on the battle's outcome. American after-action reports barely mention encountering Japanese submachine guns, focusing instead on the threat posed by artillery, mortars, and machine guns. The Type 100 has become so irrelevant to Japanese defensive schemes that many units don't bother issuing them even when available. Ammunition expenditure at Okinawa illustrates American industrial supremacy. Marine and Army units fire over 200 million rounds of .3006 ammunition during the 82-day campaign, more than twice Japan's total wartime production of 8 Nambu ammunition. Individual Marines carry and expend more ammunition in a single day than Japanese soldiers receive for entire operations. This profligate expenditure, impossible for Japanese forces, reflects absolute confidence in unlimited resupply. Post-war analysis by the United States Strategic Bombing Survey confirms the decisive impact of American industrial superiority in small arms production. The survey concludes that Japan never develops the industrial infrastructure necessary for modern warfare. While Japanese craftsmen can produce individual weapons of reasonable quality, they can never achieve the mass production necessary for global conflict. The Type 100 represents this failure, a weapon that requires too much skilled labor to produce too few inadequate weapons. The Korean War from 1950 to 1953 provides unexpected validation of the M1 Garand's superiority over submachine guns in varied combat conditions. When North Korean and Chinese forces employ Soviet-supplied PPSH-41 and PPS-43 submachine guns in mass infantry attacks, American and United Nations forces armed with M1 Garands consistently prevail in ranged firefights. The Garand's accuracy and power at extended ranges prove decisive in the mountainous Korean terrain where engagement distances often exceed submachine gun effective range. Marine veterans of the Pacific War who serve in Korea note the similarity between Japanese and Communist tactics, both emphasizing mass assault and close combat to negate American firepower advantages. The M1 Garand, now supplemented with improved ammunition and better maintenance procedures, continues to provide the range and stopping power necessary to defeat these tactics. Marines at the Chosin Reservoir in November and December 1950, fighting in temperatures that reach -35 degrees Fahrenheit, find their Garands still function when other weapons fail. The Japanese Self-Defense Forces, established in 1954, notably choose not to retain the Type 100 in any capacity. Instead, they initially adopt American M1 Garands provided through military assistance programs, an implicit acknowledgement of the weapon's superiority. Former Imperial Japanese Army officers serving as advisors to the new force specifically cite the M1 Garand's reliability and effectiveness as reasons for adoption. They have learned through bitter experience what works in modern warfare. Examination of surviving Type 100 specimens in museums reveals the weapon's fundamental design compromises. The horizontal magazine, intended to allow prone firing with a long magazine, actually makes the weapon awkward in every firing position. The complex bayonet mounting system, reflecting Japanese emphasis on blade weapons, adds weight and manufacturing complexity for a capability rarely used. The adjustable rear sight, graduated to unrealistic ranges, demonstrates disconnection between theoretical design and practical application.